Hello everyone, my name is Georgy, and this is my friend Marc from Spain. Together, we work at Kaspersky's Global Research and Analysis team, where we tackle the most complicated cyber threats in the world. And today, we're actually very happy to be here on the Irish soil. And you know, yesterday, I took a walk in the Phoenix Park here in Dublin, and on my way, I saw clovers growing, including some four-leaf ones actually. And what this means is that Ireland is a very lucky place. However, despite this island being blessed with luck, it is still being infiltrated by APTs that want to target the organizations placed here and steal confidential documents from them. And when we speak about APTs, they're actually all different. Some of them prefer to use very well-known, very popular techniques to achieve what they want, while others surprise us researchers with new techniques every time during every their attack. And usually, when we speak about those complex APTs, what we usually imply are those very big and very well-known APTs like WinNTI, APT29, or Lazarus. We discuss those commonly here at Virus Bulletin. However, there are actually very small APTs. We observe their attacks very rarely, but every their attack is a masterpiece. And the mask, the APT that we're going to talk today, is one of them. So, one interesting fact about the mask is that this APT actually speaks Spanish. So one of the Spanish words found in the previously observed malware was Careto. And if we try and see what the definition of this word is, well, we see something in Spanish, and I actually don't understand Spanish, so Marc, can you please tell me what this text on the screen means?
Absolutely. I'll do the dirty job for you. So Careto means mask in English, and it's that kind of object that you put in your face when you have a party with friends and family and you want to cover yourself. And that's the meaning, a mask.
So yeah, it's the mask. And this string, Careto, is the reason why it's called the mask. And Marc, since you know so much about Spanish, can you please actually tell us about the history of this APT?
Absolutely, thank you. So let's go to deep dive a bit about the actors. So we know about Careto when we published the report in 2014, but based on our telemetry, we could spot hits about Careto in 2007. So they are there for a while. So Careto is a really sophisticated group, not as famous in name as probably one of the ones that Mr. Georgy mentioned, like Turla and other actors, but it's a really sophisticated and special group. Regarding the victimology, they are usually targeting government institutions, diplomatic entities, energy sector, and activists. Regarding where are let's say the impacting, we have several regions. We are talking about Middle East, Latin America, and Europe. No worries, Ireland is not affected yet. This is a lucky country. The mask also is special. It has a special interest for us because they were able to exploit vulnerabilities against our product, like other APT groups did in the past, like Duku. So it's a really special group for us. The group is really sophisticated, as I explained it. They are able to code like really professional malware, like custom rootkits, and also able to exploit our products. Let's go to deep dive a little bit on the history of the group.
So yeah, we had the last report on this thing in 2014, and since then, nobody knew the whereabouts of this actor. However, this all changed this year when we detected an attack against a victim that we couldn't identify. However, upon searching for more traces of this attack, we found out that the same malware used in 2024 was observed in an organization in Latin America. And by looking at those infections in 2024 and 2022, we actually managed to get a pretty coherent picture of what happened in the organization in Latin America. And, well, of course, every attack begins with initial access. And when we speak about initial infection, there are usually several ways you can do it. For example, you can send phishing emails, or you can try to exploit public services that face the internet. And luckily, not for the organization, of course, but for the attackers, the organization had one particular network service, which is very popular nowadays, which almost every organization has. Mark, you have any ideas what kind of internet service this is?
So I'm guessing it's not the landing page, and it should be the mail server.
Exactly. They had a mail server. And they actually had a Windows-based email server that was running on a software called mdaemon. And this software, it has a web panel functionality that you can open in the browser, and you can authorize and access the emails online. And actually, what the threat actor did is that they somehow compromised this email server. We don't know how. Maybe it was a zero-day vulnerability. And then they implanted a backdoor inside it. So as for the backdoor, again, if we have a server, there are numerous ways how we can plant malware inside. We can just put some executable on disk and configure it to run on startups through the wrong registry key, but no, that's not what the mask does. They did something more sophisticated, and they hid their backdoor exactly inside the email server. So how this works is that mdaemon has a concept called extensions. It has a configuration file where you can set up these extensions. And for each extension, you need to specify the URL that will be used for request to this extension, as well as a name of a DLL file which will respond to these requests. For example, here, the extension with number 10 is handled by the DLL worldclan.dll. And if you look here attentively at the configuration, we see here we have entry number 3, we have entry number 5, and we have entry number 7. We actually have a gap in numbering. We don't have entry number 6 here. So what attackers did, they implanted their malicious extension into entry number 6. And as such, whenever somebody accessing the browser's URL, world client mailbox, the malware would get triggered. And in order to better understand how this works, I think there is no better way than just to try to poke around with malware a little bit. So over here, I have a virtual machine. I'll start it up. It'll take a few seconds. So here, the web panel of mdaemon. And over here, I have the configuration file opened, and here I have the malicious entry with the URL world client mailbox. And now, if I insert it in the browser, like this, the malware actually responds with service unavailable. But if we not just put the link in the browser, but actually make a post request to this URL, and furthermore, if we specify here this query ID parameter, then we'll be able to execute malicious commands on the server. So here, I have query ID 02, which stands for the command execute a shell command. So here I have the command net user. I send the request, wait for it to get processed, and on the bottom of the screen here, I have a list of user accounts. Another command here, number 15, it allows to obtain directory listings. So here, the C Windows directory, I send the request, and in the response, we have a list of files in this directory. So the way how they implemented this backdoor is actually very sneaky, because they could have done something like classic, like connect to the C2 server every 30 minutes, get a command or so. No, they don't do this. the implant patiently waits until somebody from the external network connects to it and issues a command. So now, once they implanted this backdoor, well, they started doing things with this, and of course, they wanted to propagate further in the network. To do that, they first collected some intel from remote computers. They exported the SAM hive that contains passwords in the registry, and they as well copied some documents from the organization. And after that, they started doing something very, very fishy. They dropped several files to machines. Like here, one of the files was called hmpalert.sys, and it actually turned out to be a legitimate driver. Another file dropped was hmpalert.dll, and it was malicious. It was dropped to the system32 folder, and the driver was dropped to the drivers folder. And apart from that, they also downloaded two temporary files, a bash file and an XML file. The XML file turned out to be a scheduled task configuration. What the scheduled task was configured to do, it simply launched this bash file right here, and once the file was launched, the task would get deleted. And as for this bash file, it was doing some stuff with those HMP alert things. In particular, it added some values, again with the name HMP alert, to the registry, and also configured the sys driver to run on startup. And now, if we actually try to find out what this hmpalert.sys is, we'll find out that it's a driver of an antivirus tool called Hitman Pro Alert. And it's very strange to see it deployed by a threat actor because, well, antivirus tools are used to remove malware. Having the malware removed is one of the worst dreams of a threat actor. It's very strange. But if we actually look further, we see that this driver can inject the hmpalert.dll library into newly started processes as part of functioning of the antivirus tool. So what we may be dealing with here is some technique that involves DLL injection. However, if we try to Google it, well, we won't find anything. So if this is some kind of technique, it must be undocumented and previously unseen. And well, in case of these techniques, again, the best option is to explore it by ourselves. So let's suspend this VM and load up another one. And let's see what we have here. We have here an hmpalert.dll library placed in the system32 folder. It's actually not the library used by the mask. It's a dummy library that, when it gets loaded into the process, it creates a file in the root of the C drive. The name of the file contains the process name as well as its process ID. Up next, we have the hmpalert.sys driver, the legitimate one, and we also have a root shell, and we'll now use it to launch the script that was dropped by the mask. Here, look, we launch it, and we see the operation completed successfully. And now, what we have to do is restart the computer and monitor for files right here in the C drive. Let's do it. And the restart will take some time, and while it's ongoing, I'm going to tell you some facts about how we worked on reverse engineering, exploring Careto in 2014. Well, we managed to sinkhole one of the command and control servers, and luckily for us, it still had many victims connecting to it. And those victims had very strange user agents, not only for Windows, but for Mac, iOS, and Linux. We haven't still seen any Linux or mobile phone versions of the mask, so if you find them, please do share it with us. We are really looking for them because we haven't seen them for a long time. So now the computer has started up, and let's look into what happens in the C drive folder. We see files created here, And our malware has been injected into very privileged processes like LSASS, SVC host, and even winlagon.exe. So now, what this means is that the Hitman Pro alert driver, it does not actually verify the contents of the DLL that it is loading, and that makes it possible to use the driver for DLL injections into very privileged processes. However, despite this is not a vulnerability in the Hitman Pro alert software, because in order to install the driver and in order to move the malicious DLL into the System32 folder, you require administrator privileges. And jumping from admin privileges to kernel is not considered to be crossing a security boundary. In case you're interested more about boundaries, you can listen to the recording of his talk that he delivered on the first day of the conference and also read his article. It tells you all about it. But this is not something at the mission on Hitman Pro's side. It's not a vulnerability. It's just how the driver works. So as for the malware itself, we saw that the DLL gets injected into multiple processes, but it actually works only in 3 processes. One of them is winlagon.exe. This component of the malware is used for running various payloads. The other one is run in dwm.exe, and it is used for screenshotting. Finally, the third component runs in svchost.exe, and it is used for communicating with the C2 infrastructure. And the 3 components communicate with each other through named pipes. While the C2 communications module, it uploads all the stolen data to the cloud. And actually, apart from this implant, we saw quite a few other malware samples deployed during these attacks, and Marc will tell you more about it.
Thank you, Georgy. So I want to describe one of the 2 implants that we analyzed during the campaign because it has a special interest about the purpose of the implant itself. One of them is the microphone recording implant. So basically, the Careto guys added support for this implant to Windows 10 and Windows 11. This capability of the implant is using the microphone, so the idea is to record all the audio that is available when someone is using the computer. And for Windows 10, they had to hook the API, the Windows API, shell notification, WB, just to prevent the icon being displayed on the system. So when this implant is running, the microphone is recording and the victim won't see anything on the system. I mean, the icon is not displayed there. For Windows 11, they had to do another thing because it's not using the same APIs, and they had to patch the unmasked capability user changed through the PDB parsing. So they actually added support for both ecosystems, for the newest Windows version and also for Windows 10 that is widely used worldwide. For all the recordings, what they did is to upload them to Dropbox. What they managed to do is embed on the implant itself or what is necessary to connect to the Dropbox API to send the recording. So they embedded the API keys, secret tokens, whatever is necessary to send all the recordings to the cloud storage provider. The second implant that is quite interesting is the file stealing module. One funny thing that we found is the PDB reference on the implant itself, that it's related to the Bimax Marvel character. So we know that the group guys behind the campaign are a fan of this Marvel character. And this file stealing module, and we know that because we are studying and researching about Careto since we discovered it. We know that Careto has really interest in all what belongs to browser data, data from messenger applications, confidential documents, and we know that this has the special interest from this group. So this file stealing module has also interesting commands that the attacker can do, as for example, get the local directory path where the implant is executed, also get the username or the logon username used, but also get the domain. If the user is on a domain system, they can also extract the domain name, and then they can verify and double check where the victim belongs for. And also they are able to extract the OneDrive ID and also the OneDrive refresh token. So it's actually a model to steal data from the system. So let's go to the dive a little bit more on the victimology. Georgy.
Okay, so now it was basically about the new attacks of Careto, but actually the investigation was not over. And it was necessary to attribute the malware to a threat actor because at the time, of course, we didn't know it was the mask. And actually, if a magician came to me and said like, hey, you want some kind of a magic ability related to malware analysis, you can choose one and only one. Well, I would say I want to look at the malware and instantly find out which threat actor is behind it. But unfortunately, there is no such thing in real life, and you have to do a lot of work to find out the threat actor behind the malware. And in order to do attribution, what you usually do is try to find some unique file names or C2 server addresses that were observed in previous attacks. And we found one. We found one of the names of files deployed during the recent attacks in an infection in 2019. And the target infected was the same organization in Latin America that was compromised in 2022. And what we actually saw was the tasking process, which is responsible for managing scheduled tasks. It loaded this CMD file, knows that, look here, its name, we previously saw it before in the previous attack. And this batch file was configuring a DLL payload to run on startup using the COM hijacking technique. And if we actually look at the payload that was configured to be run on startup, we see that it's a modular framework consisting of multiple plugins. And the names of the plugins were consisting of 4 bytes. So anybody here can tell me what these 4 bytes can actually mean?
Any volunteer?
Yeah, any volunteer? Yeah, you said CRC32, yeah. So it's basically a hash, but well, yeah, we have many types of hashes. We have CRC32, we have FMV1A, we have many others. So which hash is it? So we actually saw that the malware used a DGB hash inside it. And we saw, well, what if it's a DGB hash on some file name? And we actually used our database of DLL names to crack those hashes. And we got some very interesting results. Like we see that there is a key logging feature, some file filtering feature communications. But the functioning of this malware is not as important right now as what the cracking allowed us to do. It allowed us to tie these 3 attacks that we discussed to the mask. Marc will tell you more details.
Thank you. So when we talk about attribution, it's something that we have to take care really in a serious way, right? So when we look at the data and the artifacts that we have, not only from this new campaign, but also from the campaigns that we analyzed in the past, we could spot how there were like certain similarities. So from the campaign let's go to start from the newer part. So from 2022 and 2024, and also 2019, you can see how the batch file has the same name. So they didn't change that, so same name. And that's one of the indicators that maybe the same cluster of activity is behind this campaign, right? And when we talk, when we start to see also the files used on the more ancient campaigns like 2007 and 2013, we see how the file name of the structure of the name is mostly the same, but with a different extension file use. So it's probably the same algorithm file that is creating those file names in the system. And when we take a look on the model names used for the more old campaigns, we see these model names, and for the newer ones, the ones that Mr. Georgy told that we were able to crack and start the names. We can see how they reuse the storage module names, so they didn't change that. And also for regarding the modules like file, filter, and the config, they just added a few words, mostly significating that it's the same group behind it. So it's let's say it's like an object failure made by the Careto guys that also helped us to make the attribution. So let's go to sum up the presentation and just to recap for the important things. So Careto is one of those sophisticated groups that is under the radar for a lot of time. It's not as famous as other APT groups that we have in the industry, like Turla, APT 39, APT 28. But it's a really sophisticated group that is capable of being under the radar and also create really advanced and professional malware, right? They are also really smart. They were able to also use antivirus tools and turn them into a persistent mechanism. So Mr. Georgy explained it most of the time for the even cybercrime or APT campaigns, the actors want to have the antivirus security solutions out of them, right? And this group managed to turn that on their own profit. It's a group that uses different persistent mechanisms like the Windows registry or DLL sideloading. And also they decided to use Dropbox for the data exfiltration because it's probably a cloud storage provider that is allowed everywhere in the world. So we need more light on these more, let's say, undercover groups to start to look at on the activity that they do. As Mr. Georgy said, so if you find any activity, malware that affect to other architecture or other platforms, we are here to help on the analysis. And if you want to share the sample with us, we will be really happy. So it was a pleasure to be on the stage showing our latest research. And I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Thanks.